Alright, subpart F, so part 228, subpart F, substantive hours and service requirements for the train employees engaged in the commuter and the intercity rail passenger transportation system. 228.401, applicability. Except the providing paragraph of the B, the section requirements of the subpart apply with the railroad with these offer their agent with respect with the train employee who are engaged in the commuter and intercity rail passenger transportation, including train employees who are engaged in the tourist, scenic, historic excursion, railway passenger transportation. The subpart does not apply with the rapid transit operation in the urban area that are not connected with the general railroad system of the transportation. 228.403, non-application exemption definition general. The subpart does not apply with the situation involving any of the following: a casualty, an unavoidable accident, an act of God, delaying result from causing an unknown or unforeseeable to the railroad officer or agent in charge of the employee, whether the employee left the terminal. Exemption: the administrator may exempt the railroad having not within the total of the 15 train employees, signal employees, dispatching service employees from the limitation imposed with the subpart of the railroad train employees who are engaged in commuter intercity railway passenger transportation. For the administrator may allow the exemption for the subpart of the after the full hearing for the good cause of the show, now deciding that the exemption is a public interest that will not affect the safety adversely with the exemption shall be for a specific period of the time the subject of the review, the least annually. The exemption may not authorize the railroad to require that all of the train employees to be on duty for more than total 12-16 hours of the 24-hour period. Definition: in so far, the commuter intercity railway passenger system has mainly of the assigned with the section 24102 of the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code. The terms commuter railway service passenger transportation and intercity rail passenger transportation. Train employees who are engaged with the commuter intercity railway passenger transportation, including train employees who are engaged with the commuter intercity railway passenger transportation, regardless of the nature of the entity by whom the employee is employed. Any other the train employee is employed by the commuter railway, the intercity passenger railroad. The term excludes the train employee with another type of the railroad who is engaged with the work train service, even though the work train service might be related to providing commuter intercity railway passenger transportation. A train employee or another type of the railroad who served as the multi-pilot training operator with the commuter railroad and intercity passenger railroad. 221.405, limitation of the duty hour of the train employees engaged in commuter and intercity railway passenger transportation. Generally accepted provided in paragraph C of the section of railroad and its officer agents must not be required to allow train employees engaged in commuter intercity railway passenger trains to remain on duty. This other the employee has had at least 8 consecutive off-duty hours during the 24-hour period after the employee has been on the duty for the 12 consecutive hours until the employee has at least 10 consecutive hours off duty. Ensure that at least at most 12, 14 consecutive calendar days except for the following limitations. The employee is first served with the series after the most 14 consecutive calendar days begin with the first calendar day that the employee initiates on the duty period on after the compliance of the day after the paragraph A3 of the specified in statute 228.413 this year with the most 14 consecutive calendar days either ends with the 14 consecutive days if it may last for the least of the 14 consecutive days if the employee has accumulated the total of 2 calendar days which the employee has not initiated the on-duty period on-duty period before the beginning of the 14th day of the series. After the employee has accumulated a total of 2 calendar days on duty, but the employee is not initiated on duty. In period including at least 24 consecutive hours off the duty required with the paragraph A32 with the 2 consecutive calendar days without initiating on duty with the period required with the paragraph A33 the section during the employee current series with at least 10 14 consecutive calendar days. The new series with the most 14 consecutive calendar days begins on the calendar day in which the employee next initiates an on-duty period. The only calendar days after the starting date of the series are counted toward the accumulation of the total of 2 calendar days on which the employee did not initiate the on-duty period of the calendar day of which an on-duty period did not initiate that occurred prior to the start of the new series do not count toward the refreshing of the new series. If the employee initiates an on-duty period each of the day of any 6 of the more consecutive calendar days during the series, the most 14 consecutive calendar days, at least one of the on-duty periods is defined in Type 2, but the assignment of the employees must have at least 24 consecutive hours of the duty in the part of the next initiating on-duty period. Subjects provided in paragraphs A3-5 of this section. 3. If the employee is initiated on duty period with each of the day with the 13 more calendar days of the series at most the 14 consecutive calendar days, the employee must have at least 2 consecutive calendar days on which the employee does not initiate an on-duty period prior to the next initiation on-duty period except as provided in paragraph A3-5 of the section. 4. Minimum time off duty with required in paragraph A3-2 of this section at least 2 of the consecutive calendar days in which the employee does not initiate on-duty before period required in paragraph A3-3 of this section must immediately be at the employee's home terminal during the such a period. The employees shall be then available for any service of any railroad. 5 paragraphs A3 and A2 and 3 of the section notwithstanding if in the period if the employee is not able to not at the employee's home at the terminal at the time of the office duties required. Paragraph A32 of the section of the calendar dates in which the employee does not initiate undue period are required in paragraph A33 of this section. The employee may either have the employment of the final relief of the employee home terminal to initiate the on-duty period in order to return to the employee's home terminal either the same calendar day or the next consecutive of the calendar day after the completion of the duty of the tour triggering requirements of paragraph A32 and A33 of this section. If the employee is required to have at least 24 consecutive hours of the duty on paragraph A32 of this duty, the section not initiated on duty period of at least 2 consecutive calendar days. On paragraph A33 of this section, both requirements shall be observed at the records period of the concurrent to the extent that they overlap. Determining the time on duty, determining under paragraph A of the section of this time of the training play with the subject of the subpart is on off of the two the following the rules apply. Time on duty beginning for the employee with the report on duty and for the employee with the finally released from the duty. The time of the employees engaged in connected with the movement of the train is in the time on duty. The time spent with performing any of the other for the railroad during the 24-hour period within which the employees engaged with the connected with the movement of the train is in time on duty. Is time on duty. Time spent with the deadhead of transportation for the duty assignment at the time of the duty. On time spent with the deadhead transportation for the duty assignment with the delay for the final reason. Relief is either time on duty nor time off duty. An intermittent period available for the for rest over the place for the other than designated terminal is time on duty. The intermittent period available for the less than 4 hours rest for this designated terminal is time on duty. And 7. An intermittent period available for at least 4 hours of the rest for the place for the suitable facility, food, lodging is not time on duty when employees are prevented from getting to employees designated terminal by any of the following: a casualty, a track obstruction, active without derailment, the major equipment that follows a failure resulting in the cause of the unknown and unforeseeable railroad of the officer agent with the charge of the employee when the employee left the designated terminal. Emergencies. A train employee subject to the subpart who is in the crew of the wreck with the relief of the train may be allowed to remain and go on the duty with more than for the 4 additional hours within any of the period of 24 consecutive hours when the emergency exists. If the work of the crew is related to the emergency with the paragraph of the emergency end of the rail when the track is cleared but the railroad roadway line is open for the traffic. Alright, 228.407, analysis of the work schedule submission for the FR review of the approval of the submission, fatigue, and the mitigation plans. Analysis of the work schedule. Each railroad subject to the subpart performed the analysis of the one cycle of the work schedule for the period with which for the worker schedule the repeats of the train employees gave for the commuter, intercity, rail, passenger transportation, identify those work scheduled and intended to be assigned with the train employee that are work with the HUD for the train employed by the HUD, and the train employee at risk level of fatigue that which the safety may be compromised schedule identified in paragraph G of the section do not have to be analyzed the level of fatigue at which the safety may be compromised here after the called the fatigue threshold should be determined in the procedure to use the scientifically valid mathematical module of the human performance fatigue that has been approved by the associated administrator pursuant to paragraph C1 of the section previously accepted by the pursuant to the paragraph C2 of the section. Each of the work schedule of the violation of the fatigue threshold must be one reported to the associated administrator to provide with the paragraph B of the section no later than April 12, 2012. 2. Either mitigated action in compliance with the railroad fatigue mitigation plan that has been approved by the associated administrator is specified in the paragraph B of the section no later than April 12, 2012. The support of determination of the schedule for the operational necessary with the fatigue risk of the ministry sufficiently mitigated the use of the fatigue mitigation tools to reduce the risk of the fatigue to the level that does not violate the fatigue and threshold no later than April 12, 2012. Both no later than April 12, 2012. Approved by the FRA for the use of the accordance with the paragraph B of this section. B. Submission of a certain work schedule unless work schedules any with the fatigue mitigation plan for the determination of operational necessity, calculation of the FRA review and approval. No later than April 12, 2012, the railroad shall submit with an approval for the associated administrator of the work schedule described in paragraph B112 and for the section the railroad shall identify the group of the work schedule as follows. 1. Work schedule that the railroad has found to be used the validated amount with the specified in C1 of the section approved the FRA in accordance with the paragraph C2 of this section. Present risk of the level of fatigue that violates the applicable fatigue threshold, but the railroad has determined that can be mitigated by the use of the fatigue mitigation tool so that the present risk of the level of fatigue that does not violate the applicable fatigue threshold of the fatigue mitigation tools that will be used to mitigate the fatigue risk are presented by the schedule but must also be submitted. 2. Work schedule that have the railroad has found with the use of validated model that specify the paragraph C1 of the section approved with the FRA in accordance with the paragraph C2 of the section present the risk of the level of fatigue that violates the applicable fatigue threshold, but a railroad has determined that cannot be mitigated so that the present risk of the level of fatigue does not violate the applicable fatigue threshold, but even the fatigue mitigation tool the railroad has determined the opportunity necessary, but the basis for the determination must be also submitted. If the railroad performs analysis of the schedule required with the paragraph A with the second determines if none of the violates applicable to the fatigue threshold, therefore none of the present the risk of the fatigue that required to submit with the associated administrator pursuant to the paragraph of the railroad, so no later than April 12, 2012, submit the associated administrator the written declaration signed in any officer of the railroad that has performed the railroad analysis to determine that there is no schedule that is required to be submitted. The FRA will review submitted work with the schedule proposed fatigue mitigation tool determination of the operation necessary. If the FRA identifies any of the exemptions that is made with the information, the agency will notify the railroad within 120 days for the receipt of the railroad submission for the railroad server is required to correct any deficiencies identified in the FRA within the time frame specified by the FRA. The FRA will audit the railroad work schedules and fatigue mitigation tools every 2 years to ensure compliance with this section. RC submission model to the FRA. The proof of the validity of the models are already accepted by the FRA. If the railroad subject to the subpart wishes to use the model for the human performance of fatigue not previously approved by the FRA for the purpose of the making the part of all the analysis required with the paragraph A and B, D of the section, the railroad shall submit the models of evidence in support of the scientific validation for the approval of the associated administrator. For the decision of the associated administrator regarding the validity of the model and are subject to review under statute 21155 of this chapter. Railroad may use the model that already accepted by the FRA, but the FRA has approved the fatigue avoidance schedule for the tool for the FAST issued with the July 15, 2009. The fatigue science incorporated the fatigue threshold for the purpose of the regulation less than or equal to 70 to 20% more than the time of the work of the duty of the tour. Fatigue audit interdine or FADE version 2 for the issue of the September 2000 Interdynamics PTY Ltd Australian company number ACN 0570376355 with a fatigue threshold for the purpose of the regulation greater than or equal to 72 to 20 or for 20% of the more of the time of the work of the day due for the tour scientifically validated the biomethical model of the human performance of fatigue for the purpose of the making of the analysis required with the paragraph A and G of the section. Other version of the model identified the paragraphs must be submitted with the FRA approval prior to the use of the provided with the paragraph C1 of this section. 3 of the new model was submitted with the FRA approval to presume the paragraph C1 of the section. The FRA will involve us to note for the submission for the Federal Register will provide with the opportunity to comment for the prior to the Associated Administrator making final determination as to the disposition of the Associated Administrator approve the new model as having to be validated and calibrated so that it can be used in schedule analysis in compliance with the regulation. The FRA will also publish the note for the determination for the FRA Federal Register. D. Analyze for the certain late change of the work schedule. Additional follow-up of the analysis must be performed each time of the railroad change of one of this work schedule within a manner of the world would differ from the FRA to approve the parameters of the hours of due with any work schedule previously analyzed pursuant to paragraph A of the section 2 that would alter the work schedule to the extent of the train employee for the work. The schedule may also raise the experience of the level of fatigue that violates the FRA approved the fatigue threshold established in paragraph A of the section. Such additional follow-up analysis must be submitted to the FRA approval to provide under paragraph D of the section as soon as practical prior to the use of the new schedule for any employee subject to the subpart. The FRA's approval is not necessary before a new schedule may be used. However, the schedule that has been disapproved by the FRA will not be used. The FRA will review the submitted revised work schedule and any accompanying fatigue mitigation tools determination for the operational necessity. The FRA identifies any exemptions submitted information for the agency will be notified of the railroad as soon as possible. The railroads are required to correct any of the deficiencies identified by the FRA within the time frame specified by the FRA. The fatigue mitigation plans are written. Plan must be developed and adopted. The railroad mitigate the potential for the fatigue of any of the work schedule identified through the analysis of the required of the paragraph A, the D of the section of risk, including the potential fatigue of the unscheduled work of the assignments of compliance with the fatigue mitigation that the plan is mandatory. The railroad shall review and if necessary update with the plan at least once every 2 years after adoption of the plan. Home consultation for the railroad subject for the subpart shall constitute consult with the employee good faith and use the best for the efforts to reach an agreement with all the directly affected employees, including any non-profit employee lawyer organization representing the class of craft that is directly affected with the employees of the railroad and of the following subject of the railroad review of the work schedule found to be risky for a level of fatigue of which for the safety may be compromised described in paragraph A of the section. The railroad selection of the appropriate fatigue mitigation tools, and 3, the submission by the railroad with the associated administrator for the approval of the required in section for this purpose. of the section directly effective with the employee, the main employee to whom one of the work schedules apply that would apply, or if approved, the three, if the railroad is indirectly affected with the employees, including any of the non-profit employees, labor organization representing the class or craft that directly and effective with the employee of the railroad can be not reached the consensus on an area described in paragraph F1 of this section. The directly affected with the employee of any of the such organization may file a statement with the associated administrator explaining the views of any of the issues without which consensus was not reached with the associated administrator. So shall consider such views during the review of the approval of the items required by the section G. The schedule not requiring analysis. Type of the schedule is described in paragraph 1 and 2, but this paragraph do not require the analysis described in paragraph A and D of this section. Schedules consisting solely with the type 1 assignment that do not have to be analyzed. Schedules containing the type 2 assignment that do not have to be analyzed. If the type 2 assignment is no longer the duration than fully contained within the schedule of another type 2 assignment that has already determined with the presence of an acceptable level of risk of fatigue that does not violate the fatigue threshold if longer than type 2 schedule within another type 2 schedule that's named requirements mitigation applied in order to achieve an acceptable level of risk of fatigue that does not violate the fatigue threshold, with some of the more effective mitigations must be applied to shorter type 2 with the schedule fully contained within the already acceptable type 2 schedule. Statute 228-409 requirement that the railroad provide with the employees sleeping quarters during the interim relief and other periods available for the rest within a duty tour. Or if the railroad subject to the subpart to provide sleeping quarters for the relief of the trained employees subject to the subpart during the interim period of the relief of the method of the mitigation fatigue, identify the analysis of the work schedule required within statute 228-407A and D, but such sleeping quarters must be clean and safe and sanitary, but to give the employee an opportunity for the rest and free with the interpretation coupled with the noise under the control of the railroad within the meaning of the section of the 21106A with the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code. Any sleeping quarters provided with the railroad with the proposed fast Z with mitigation tool pursuant with the statute 228-407B11 are subject to the requirements of the statute 228-407F of consolation. 228-411 training. Individuals to be trained except for the provided in paragraph F of the section each of the railroad subject to the subpart shall provide with the training with its employee subject to the subpart with the immediate supervisor for the employee subject to the subpart subject to be covered with the training shall provide with the minimum of the information of the following subject based on the most current available scientific medical research literature. Psychological human factors affecting the fatigue as well as the strategies for the reduce, mitigate, and effect of the fatigue, the opportunity for the identification of the diagnosis, treatment, of the medical condition that may affect alert fatigue, including the sleeping disorders, alternate strategies such as policies on apathy to address the acute drowsiness, fatigue, while an employee is on duty, opportunity to obtain the restful sleeping, lodging facilities, including employee sleeping quarters provided with the railroads. These effects abrupt change of the rest cycle of the employee's timing. The initial training shall be provided with the effect of the current employees no later than December 31st, 2012. The new employee subject to the subpart before the employee's first work with the as scheduled subject under this part no later than December 31st, 2012. Whichever occurs first. Time and refreshing training at the minimum. The refresher training shall be provided every 3 calendar years. Additional refresher training shall be provided with the significant changes made with the railroad fatigue with mitigation plan or to the available fatigue mitigation tools applied. Employees assignment locations where he or she works. Records of training. The railroad shall maintain a record of each of the employees provided with the training in compliance with the section, but they shall retain these records for 3 years. After conditional exclusion, the railroad gave the tourist the scenic of the historical excursion railway passenger transportation may exclude from the requirements for this section if the trains employed subject to the rule are assigned with the work of the only schedule for the wholly within the hours of the 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. on the same calendar day with the comply with the provision of the statute 228-405 upon the railroad submission from the associated administrative of the written declaration signed by an officer of the railroad indicating that the railroad meets the limitations established in the paragraph 228-413 complying with the date of the regulation exemption for the compliance of the statute. General acceptance is provided in paragraph D of the section as provided within statute 228-411 on and after April 12, 2012. The railroad subject to this part will comply with the subpart of 228-11C 1 through 1-2 and 228-19C 5 through C8 with respect to the training employees who are engaged with the commuter intercity railway passenger transportation. Be exemption for the compliance with the statute on and after October 15, 2011. The railroad subject to the subpart any provision of the subpart shall be exempt from the complying with the provision for the old section 211-103 with the new section 211-103 for the such employees. Definition in this section. The term new section 21103 means that section 21103 of the Title 49 United States Code, as amended by the Railway Safety Improvement Act of 2008, effective July 16, 2009. The term old section 201103 means the section 201103 with the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code as within the effect of the date before the enactment of the Railroad Safety Improvement Act. Exemptions on and after October 15, 2011, the railroad subject to this subpart shall comply with the statute 228, 401, 228, 403, 228, 405, A1, A2, B, and C with the 228, 409A. Railroads engaged in tourist, scenic, and historic excursion railroad passenger transportation subject to the subpart must comply with this section listed in paragraph D1 of the section on and after October 15, 2011, but are not required to comply with the other provisions of this subpart and 228.11C1 of the 2 and 228.19C and CD until April 12, 2013. Appendix A to Part 228, requirements of the hours and interpreted in active statement of the agency policy interpretation.